The night Walter Grayson died, he left me 7 words that broke everything I believed about my mother. My name's Eli Mercer. I'm 29, I deliver pizzas, and I've built my life around not asking questions. The kind that makes people look down, pause, or change the subject. But sometimes the truth doesn't wait for permission. Walter Grayson lived at the edge of town, always ordered the same thing, plain cheese pizza, no tip, until one night he started giving me exactly $47. Every time. Folded perfectly in half. Every time he'd add the same words. Tell your mother I'm sorry. I thought it was dementia. Or guilt misplaced. My mom just smiled when I told her, like she was swallowing glass. 3 months later, Walter collapsed in his doorway. His final words to me weren't a goodbye. They were a confession. And when he whispered them, I dropped the pizza box and forgot how to breathe. Because in 7 trembling words, he revealed a secret that rewrote everything I thought I knew about family, debt, and forgiveness. If this story caught your heart, make sure to hit subscribe so we keep bringing you stories that dig deep into truth, guilt, and redemption. And don't forget to tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We read them all, and your words keep us going. The first $53 felt like kindness. The 7th time it felt like a message. Walter Grayson was a quiet old man who lived at the edge of town, the kind of customer you remember because silence clings to him. He always ordered the same thing, plain cheese pizza, nothing fancy, nothing extra. For 2 years, I drove out to his peeling blue house, dropped off the box, and left with maybe a thanks. Then one Friday, he pressed a folded bill into my palm. "Keep the change," he said. I looked due, $53 exactly. No coins, no ones, just a crisp 5-3. The next week, the same. The week after, again. Always $53. I laughed about it at home, told Mom he must have some weird superstition. She smiled too quickly, like someone trying to hide a bruise under makeup. "Be polite," she said. "He's just lonely." But Walter wasn't lonely. He was deliberate. Every time he tipped, he'd say the same 6 words. Tell your mother I'm sorry. The first few times I shrugged it off. Maybe he'd confused me for someone else. Maybe he'd known another Mercer. But the way his eyes fixed on mine, sharp and pleading, started to crawl under my skin. That night I lay in bed replaying it, his shaking hands, that strange apology, the exact number 53. Why not 50? Why not 60? What was so perfect about 53? The next evening, I lingered by his porch after the delivery. Through the dusty window, I saw him hunched at a small desk, writing on something, an old photograph. When he noticed me, he froze. The porch light flickered. For a heartbeat, we just stared at each other through the glass. He slid the photo into a drawer and cracked the door open. "Your mother still lives in that blue house, right?" My throat tightened. "Yeah, why?" His jaw trembled. "No reason." Then he closed the door, soft but final. I walked back to my car, pulse thudding. The pizza box smell clung to me, but all I could taste was suspicion. At home, Mom was wiping down the kitchen counter when I asked, "Did you ever know a Walter Grayson?" The cloth in her hand stopped moving. Just for a second. Then she kept scrubbing. "Why?" "He's one of my customers. Says he's sorry to you every time." Her smile was too bright. Old men say strange things. Forget it. But I couldn't. Because kindness doesn't come in exact numbers, and apologies don't repeat by accident. That night, while she slept, I couldn't shake the image of his drawer, the photograph, the initials I'd glimpsed before he hid it. M. My mother's name is Mara Mercer. And for the first time in my life, I wondered if I was delivering more than pizza. He said sorry like a man rehearsing a confession. Every time I showed up at Walter Grayson's door, he'd hand me that folded $53 with the same trembling fingers and the same tired eyes. "Tell your mother I'm sorry," he'd repeat as if the words were medicine that never worked. I started noticing little things. His house smelled like dust and lemon polish, but there were always 2 coffee cups on the table. His hallway wall had a single photo. A young woman smiling beside a lake, initials carved into the frame, W+M. I asked him once if that was his wife. He just said, once. That night I told Mom about it. She stopped mid-stir while cooking, the spoon frozen in her hand. What did you say his name was again? Walter Grayson. Her face went blank like she'd been unplugged from the world. Don't go back there, Eli. Why not? Just don't, she snapped louder than she meant to. Then quieter. Some debts are better left unpaid. She never talked like that, cryptic, distant. That's when I knew Walter's apology meant something real. The next day, I delivered again. My manager didn't know about the ban Mom had placed, and I didn't tell him. When I knocked, Walter's porch light flickered twice before staying on. He opened the door with a weak smile. Ah, the honest boy. Why do you keep saying sorry to my mom? I asked. He looked at me for a long moment, then said, because I ruined something beautiful and she paid for it. Paid how? His hand twitched. You'll see. They always do. I didn't understand, but the way his voice broke, half guilt, half fear, made my stomach tighten. As I turned to leave, I noticed something half buried under his welcome mat, a torn envelope, crumpled and stained. It had one line scrawled in shaky ink. Debt settled. M. My mom's first initial. I shoved it in my pocket before he could notice. The air outside felt thick, like the world was holding its breath. That night I confronted Mom again. Why did you write to Walter Grayson? She stared at me, eyes wide. Where did you hear that? I held up the note. Her lip trembled, just once before she forced a shaky smile. That's not mine. Mom? I said it's not mine. She snapped, snatching the note from my hand and tearing it in half. You don't understand what kind of man he is. Maybe I didn't. But when the phone rang an hour later, I understood one thing. Walter wasn't done. My boss called, confused. Hey, Eli, old Mr. Grayson just ordered again. And he specifically asked for you. I looked at Mom. She was staring out the window like she'd already heard the words. Don't answer that order, she whispered. Please. But I was already grabbing my jacket, because whatever secret they shared, they had just ordered another pizza. You can tell a man's sins by how neatly he hides his paperwork. Walter Grayson called again 3 nights later. He sounded weaker but clearer, like guilt had sharpened his voice. Eli, he said, can you help me move some boxes in the study? They've been there too long. I knew I shouldn't have gone. My mom's warning still echoed in my head. But curiosity can outshout fear when it smells like truth. The moment I stepped inside, I felt it. Dust, regret, and something sour, like old paper left to rot. The house looked smaller now, every corner crowded with cardboard boxes stacked to the ceiling. Each was labeled in faded marker, Reynolds Accounting, 1998-2004. Walter shuffled ahead of me, breathing hard. Be careful with that one, he said, pointing to a box marked Employees. His voice cracked on the word. I knelt, lifting the lid. Inside were rows of old ledgers, bound in cracked leather, each tagged with initials. My hand froze when I saw one marked M. M. My mother's initials. Was she one of your employees? I asked, trying to sound casual. Walter didn't answer. His hand gripped the wall for balance, knuckles white. I opened the book. Every page listed payments, amounts, and dates. Then one line caught my eye. Mara Mersa, employee payout, $53,000. The ink was different, fresher, as if it had been rewritten recently. Before I could read more, Walter snatched the ledger from my hands and slammed it shut. That's not yours to see. Why would my mom's name be in there? He didn't look at me. Because she deserved more than I gave her. Because the truth can't pay interest. I stared at him, heart hammering. What does that mean? He looked toward the window, the blinds trembling in the wind. Some mistakes live longer than the people who make them. Then he walked to the desk, pulled open a drawer, and tossed the ledger inside. For a second, I saw something else in there. An old fountain pen, a photograph of a young woman holding a newborn, and a gold wristwatch engraved with initials I couldn't quite read. Walter caught me staring. If she ever finds out what that money meant, he said, voice trembling, she'll never forgive me. I wanted to ask what money, what meaning, but the words stuck. He looked like a man already buried under his own history. That night I drove home gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles ached. The number 53 kept circling in my mind, $53 tips, $53,000 payout. When I got home, Mom was sitting in the dark, her face lit by the TV's flicker. "Did you go back there?" she asked without turning around. I hesitated. "Yeah." Her voice dropped. "Then it's already started." I frowned. "What started?" She looked at me finally, eyes glossy with something between fear and regret. The part where the truth starts collecting what it's owed. "He paid $53 because he once stole $53,000. That number haunted me. It was everywhere, taped to the edge of my thoughts like a receipt I couldn't throw away. The morning after visiting Walter, I found Mom at the kitchen table, quietly tearing up old bills. She didn't notice me watching her. The trash can beside her was full of paper strips, all perfectly even, all hiding something. I sat down across from her. "You worked for him, didn't you?" Her hands froze. "Who?" "Walter Grayson." The color drained from her face. "Eli. I saw your name. In his books, a payout for $53,000. She didn't move for a long time. Then, finally, she whispered, "I wasn't supposed to ever hear that number again." I leaned forward. "What happened?" Her eyes flicked toward the window like she was checking if the past was listening. "Walter owned a small accounting firm. I was just a secretary. He was kind at first, patient, funny even. Then one night he called me into his office after hours. Said a few accounts had gone missing money, that someone had to take the fall. 'Mom, you didn't,' she cut me off. He promised me it would blow over, that he'd fix it quietly. He didn't. The next morning, my resignation letter was already printed on my desk. I signed it without reading. I didn't speak. The silence was thick, stretching between us like static. Then she said something that didn't fit the story. He sent me money after the company collapsed. Said it was a settlement. But I never cashed it. Why not? Because forgiveness doesn't come with a dollar sign, she said, her voice trembling. And because guilt doesn't go away, it compounds. She stood up suddenly, walked to a cupboard and pulled out an old cookbook. From between the yellowed pages, she slid a folded paper, creased and brittle. "This," she said, setting it on the table, "is what I never showed anyone." I opened it carefully. A letter of resignation, dated the same week as the firm's collapse, stamped in red ink, confidential settlement agreement. The signature at the bottom made my stomach twist. Mara Mercer. There, in smaller print beneath it, another signature. Walter Grayson. My mother's voice cracked. He used my name to cover his theft. Said he'd fix it, but when the police came, he disappeared. I was left with the blame. Tears blurred my vision. "Mom, he's been tipping me every delivery for months." He said he was sorry. She stared at me like she hadn't heard. Then she grabbed the letter from my hand and shoved it into the sink, turned on the faucet, and watched the ink run down the drain. "Some stains," she said softly. "You don't scrub. They drown." I opened my mouth to speak, but my phone buzzed. An unknown number. A text message. "He's not done paying yet." I looked up. Mom was staring at the same screen reflection in my eyes, her lips parted, but no words came out. Whoever sent that message knew the story better than either of us. He looked smaller in that hospital bed, like guilt had finally eaten his bones. I hadn't planned to see Walter again. But after that text, "He's not done paying ET," I needed answers. The pizza shop didn't have any new orders from him, but when I called his number, a woman's voice answered. "This is St. Augustine Hospice. Are you family?" Family. The word stuck in my throat. "I deliver food for him sometimes." The woman hesitated. "You should come. He's been asking for someone named Eli." I didn't tell Mom. She'd have tried to stop me, and I was done running from whatever this was. The hospice smelled like bleach and flowers trying to cover death. Walter's room was quiet except for the steady hum of machines. He looked fragile, half shadow, half memory. When he saw me, his eyes lit faintly. "You came." "I needed to know what you meant," I said, setting the pizza box on the table beside him. "Why do you keep saying sorry to my mom?" He gave a weak smile. "Because she was never supposed to take the blame. I wrote the numbers, but they printed her name." My heart thudded. "You're saying she's innocent?" He nodded, slow and heavy. "She was the only honest one among us. And I ruined her for it." He coughed hard, his hand trembling as he reached for a paper cup of water. When I helped him, his skin felt cold, thin, almost translucent. "I tried to fix it," he whispered. "Sent her a settlement. She never took it. That's why, 53. Every week I pay what I owe. $1 for every 1,000 stolen. It'll never be enough." He looked past me, unfocused. "Tell her. She was never just a secretary." The nurse whose name tag said Ella stepped in quietly. "He needs to rest," she murmured. But Walter clutched my wrist, eyes burning through the haze of morphine. "No, not yet." His grip tightened. His breathing hitched. I leaned closer. He whispered, each word trembling against my ear. "The boy isn't hers. He's mine." I froze. He coughed again, this time deeper, longer. The monitor beeped faster, louder, until the nurse pushed me back and called for help. I stood there, paralyzed as they worked over him. His hand slipped from mine, lifeless. Minutes later, the nurse looked up, shaking her head. "Time of death, 10:53 p.m. 53 again. The number followed me like a curse. As I walked out, the nurse caught my arm. "He wanted you to have this." She handed me a white wristband. Walter's patient tag with a barcode and a handwritten code on the back. File 53A. When I got to my car, I scanned the barcode with my phone. It led to a locked patient record labeled Restricted. Parental claim. For a long time, I just sat there, rain streaking down the windshield, replaying his last words. "The boy isn't hers. He's mine." By morning, I wasn't sure if I'd lost a stranger or found a father. He said it like confession and punishment all at once. I couldn't sleep that night. The rain against my window sounded like the heartbeat of something I wasn't ready to name. Walter Grayson was dead. But his words weren't. They kept whispering through my head like static on an old radio. "The boy isn't hers. He's mine." Morning came without sunlight, just gray. My phone buzzed with a number I didn't know. "Mr. Mercer?" A woman's voice asked. "This is Detective Inez Calder. I'm handling the Grayson estate. We need to talk." I agreed to meet her at the hospice. The halls looked smaller in daylight, as if grief had shrunk the walls. Detective Calder was waiting by the nurse's station. Tall, sharp, tired eyes that had seen too many endings. She handed me a sealed envelope. "He left this for you before he passed. Said you'd understand when the time was right." The name on the front made my pulse stumble. Mrs. Mara Grayson. My mom's maiden name wasn't Grayson. It was Mercer. Or so I thought. Was this meant for her? I asked. Calder shrugged. His handwriting. His signature. But it was found with your name on the visitor log. Odd mix. When I got home, Mom was standing by the sink again, same place, same silence. I placed the envelope on the counter. "What's this?" she asked. "You tell me." She hesitated, then opened it carefully. Inside was a single page, a death certificate, Walter's, but the envelope label wasn't a mistake. It read, "Spouse, Mara Grayson." Her breath caught. "Where did you get this?" "He left it for me," I said. "And he called you that?" "Grayson, not Mercer." Her face went pale. "That man was sick, Eli." "Then why do you look like you've seen a ghost?" She didn't answer, just turned away, gripping the counter so hard her knuckles went white. I stepped closer. "He said I wasn't yours." She spun around, eyes sharp, voice shaking. "He was delirious. Don't you dare believe a dying man's nonsense." I wanted to shout, to break the silence open and pour out everything, the ledgers, the payout, the apology, but I didn't. I just whispered, "Then why does your name match his?" For a long time, she didn't move. Then she said quietly, "Because once, a very long time ago, I made the mistake of trusting him." The air felt heavy. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. When she left the room, I looked at the death certificate again. The corner of the page had faint ink marks, initials, W, G, blue as M, G, drawn into a heart. I folded it back into the envelope, my hands shaking. The world was starting to make less sense the more truth I found. That night, as I sat in the dark, headlights flashed outside my window. Someone had parked across the street. A silhouette sat behind the wheel, watching. Then a text buzzed on my phone. No name, no greeting. Just 3 words. Check the box. And outside, in the rain, I saw it. A small brown box sitting on my porch marked with Walter Grayson's initials. It wasn't money inside the box. It was proof. The brown package sat on my porch all night, untouched, the rain tracing thin veins across its sides. By morning, I couldn't tell if it was shaking from the wind or from whatever waited inside it. The return label read only 2 letters, W.G. Walter Grayson. I carried it inside, set it on the kitchen table, and stared. Mom was still asleep. Her bedroom door was closed, the same way it always was when she didn't want the world, or me, coming in. I cut the tape slowly. Inside was a small black box, the kind used for safety deposits, heavy enough to feel deliberate. On top sat a folded note written in his scratchy handwriting. If you're reading this, I've made peace. Truth belongs to you now. My pulse thudded in my ears. I used a butter knife to pry the box open. Inside were 3 things: a cassette tape labeled Account 53A, Confession, a faded property deed with my mother's signature, a Polaroid of a baby wrapped in a hospital blanket marked with the initials E.M. Eli Mercer. Me. I didn't breathe for 10 full seconds. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. The deed caught my eye first. Reynolds Accounting, 2004. The document listed Mara Mercer as a silent partner. That couldn't be right. She'd told me she was just a secretary. Then I picked up the cassette. The handwriting on the label was shaky but clear. Account 53A, Confession. 53 again. The number that followed me like a shadow. I didn't have a tape player, but the police might. That thought barely formed before headlights swept across the front yard. A knock echoed through the house. I opened the door to see Detective Inez Calder, coat damp, expression unreadable. "You weren't answering your phone," she said. "We need to talk." She spotted the box instantly. "He sent that to you?" I nodded. "May I?" I hesitated, then handed her the cassette. She studied it like something alive. "Grayson mailed several of these to people connected to his firm. You're the first one to open it. What's on it?" She sighed. "Confessions if we're lucky. Damage control if we're not." Her eyes softened for the first time. "I'm sorry you're caught in this. Walter Grayson wasn't just guilty of fraud. There were personal secrets, the kind that destroy people." I almost laughed. "You think they're not already destroyed?" She looked down. "You should hear it first. Alone." When she left, I sat at the kitchen table with the tape in my hand. The plastic was cold, the label smudged where his thumb must have pressed while writing. I stared at the words until they blurred together. Account 53A. Confession, my name. I didn't know if I was holding a lie or a father's final truth, but I knew one thing. Whatever was on that tape, it was about to change what I called family. He confessed to 2 crimes, but only one was financial. Detective Calder left before dawn, but the tape stayed behind, sitting on my table like a loaded gun that didn't need bullets. I found an old cassette player in the attic, one of Mom's from the 90s, dusty but still working, the kind that clicks when truth starts to play. I pressed play, static first, then a slow, trembling breath. "If you're hearing this, Eli, I'm already forgiven." Walter's voice, hoarse, barely there. "I built an empire on lies, and I used your mother's name to cover them. But that's not the crime I can't die with. The real one was love." My chest tightened. I sat frozen as the recording went on. Mara was my assistant. Sharp, decent, better than me. I told myself the world owed me comfort, and she believed I was worth saving. When the money went missing, I used her signature, said I'd fix it. But instead, I destroyed her career. She ran, changed her name, took something with her I never earned. Static hissed again, followed by a heavy sigh. I found out later he was pregnant. My throat went dry. She said the child was mine, but I was too much of a coward to claim it. So I sent money. Every year. $53,000 one time. $53 every week. A number I thought would make penance measurable. The tape clicked. The sound of shuffling papers followed. Eli, you don't know me, but you look just like her. I've seen the photos. I wanted to tell you sooner, but she made me promise to stay away. I broke every promise that mattered except that one. The tape clicked off suddenly, leaving only silence. I stared at the recorder, hands trembling. That was it. No explanation. No closure. Just a man bleeding guilt through a plastic box. The sun was starting to rise through the kitchen blinds, slicing the room into thin strips of gold and shadow. The air felt too still, like it was waiting for me to say something back to the dead. Then I noticed something scrawled on the back of the cassette label. Faint pencil marks, almost erased. St. Jude's Church Donation Ledger. 1995. I spent the next hour searching online until I found an archived record from the church. It listed major donors. 2 names jumped out, Walter Grayson and Mara Grayson. Not Mercer, Grayson. My mother's name, tied to his, years before I was born. I sat back, the realization sinking like cold water through my bones. The tape hadn't just confessed to a crime, it had rewritten my birth certificate. When I looked up, Mom was standing in the doorway. Her hair was unbrushed, her eyes swollen from sleep or crying. She looked at the cassette in my hand, then at me. I heard it, she said quietly. Then you know. Her lip trembled. Yes, and now you know why I never told you. Outside, church bells began to ring. But to me, it didn't sound like Sunday. It sounded like a sentence being carried out. It's strange hearing your mother's name in a police report. After the tape, everything felt wrong. The air, the silence, even the way Mom said my name all sounded rehearsed. That morning, she sat across from me at the table, hands folded tight like she was praying to an old god who'd stopped listening. You heard everything, she said finally. I did, I answered. And you still lied. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't look away. I lied to protect you. Not from him, from the shame. I slammed the table. I deserved the truth. She flinched, then exhaled. You think truth fixes anything? Truth made me lose my job, my name, my life. He destroyed me, Eli. He took my career, my reputation, and my future. I had nothing left but you. And even then, you came with his eyes. The words hit like a slap. She turned away, staring out the window. After the firm collapsed, I went to the police. They didn't believe me. Said I helped him. Said the woman in the photos looked too comfortable beside him to be innocent. So I ran. And changed your name, I said. She nodded. To Mercer. A friend's maiden name. I thought if I worked hard enough, quietly enough, the world would forget. But guilt has a longer memory than love. Her voice cracked on that last line. She walked to a drawer, pulled something out, and set it on the table. A small pawn ticket, faded and yellow. I was going to destroy this years ago, she said. I unfolded it carefully. It was for a gold locket, pawned 29 years ago. On the back, someone had written, contains photo of infant boy. Initials E.M. Open it, she said. When I did, my throat closed. Inside was a tiny photograph, me as a baby, wrapped in a blanket. Next to my face, scratched faintly into the gold, were the initials W.G. Walter gave that to me before I left, she said. Said it would remind me he cared. But all it did was remind me how much he ruined. I looked at her, voice trembling. So he really was my father? She nodded once, barely. Yes, and I hate that it's true. Silence settled like dust. Then my phone buzzed. Detective called her again. Eli, she said, her voice steady but cold. You need to see something. We found a revised will in Grayson's safety deposit box. I swallowed. What does it say? You're listed as his only heir, she replied. Alongside your mother's name, as Mara Grayson. The world tilted slightly. Mom's face went blank. No, she whispered. He promised he'd never put us in his affairs again. Calder's tone softened. You'll want to read it. There's a clause. It's labeled the redemption account. When the call ended, I looked at Mom. She was already crying, silently. I didn't know if the tears were from relief or terror, because the dead man wasn't finished with us yet. The inheritance wasn't money, it was confession. Detective Calder called again the next morning. Her voice was steady, professional. but I could hear the undertone of pity. The Grayson estate's lawyer wants to meet. He says your name is in the file. So is your mother's. By noon, I was sitting in a cold office that smelled like paper and coffee. Jonas Reed, the estate lawyer, looked too calm for a man holding someone's family secrets. His desk was neat, his tie perfect. "Mr. Mercer," he said, motioning for me to sit. "Or should I say, Mr. Grayson?" My stomach turned. "I'm not using that name." He smiled politely, sliding a thin envelope across the desk. "Then you'll want to read this." I opened it. Inside was Walter's last will and testament, 12 pages of legal language and guilt carved into paper. My name appeared halfway down the page. "To my son, Eli Mercer, legally born Eli Grayson, I leave my home, my accounts, and $53,000 in bonds, one for every mistake I made." The air left my lungs. My mother's name appeared just below mine. Mara Grayson, beneficiary, co-signed under the redemption clause. "What is this?" I asked. Jonas adjusted his glasses. "Mr. Grayson updated his will 2 months before he died. Said it wasn't about inheritance, it was about making peace before the clock ran out." "Peace?" I scoffed. "He destroyed her life." The lawyer nodded slightly. "That's exactly what he said." He pulled out another document, folded neatly, the redemption clause. It read, "Neither Mara nor Eli is required to accept these assets. The act of acknowledgement alone is enough to fulfill my debt." I stared at it numb. Jonas continued, "If you refuse the inheritance, the property reverts to the state. But if you accept, even symbolically, the Grayson family name is legally restored to both of you." My voice dropped. That's what this was about. Not money. Legacy. He gave a quiet nod. He wanted his last name to live somewhere it could be forgiven. Outside, the sky was starting to bruise with storm clouds. I stood, gripping the papers. "I'm not signing anything," I said. "Your choice," Jonas replied, sliding the envelope back toward me. "But sometimes closure requires a signature." When I got home, Mom was sitting by the window staring at the rain. I handed her the will without speaking. She skimmed it once, then twice, then pressed a hand to her mouth. "He had no right," she whispered. "No right to claim us now." "Then don't sign it," I said. Her eyes filled with tears. "But if I don't—" It's like saying none of it mattered. I didn't know what to say. The will lay between us like a wound we both inherited. As thunder cracked outside, my phone buzzed again. Detective Calder. Her message was short. "You should read the last page." I turned back to the will, flipping to the end. There it was, a handwritten note, faded but legible. "For my son, Eli. The truth may not set you free, but it will make you real. I delivered truth instead of pizza that night." Walter Grayson's will had burned through my house like a match, quiet but unstoppable. My mom barely spoke after that day. She sat on the couch with the lights off, holding the locket she once pawned and whispering things I couldn't hear. I spent the next week trying to figure out what to do with the inheritance, if you could even call it that. A house, some bonds, and a name soaked in regret. It didn't feel like money. It felt like evidence. Then Detective Calder called again. "There's going to be a memorial," she said. "Small service. The family is claiming the body. You should come. Closure helps more than you think." That night I went. The service was held in a quiet church at the edge of town, the same one listed on the back of the cassette. St. Jude's. The pews were mostly empty. Just a few hospice nurses, the lawyer, and Calder standing near the back. The smell of candle wax filled the air. They gave me a seat near the front, though I didn't know if I deserved it. The priest read words that felt borrowed, phrases about redemption, peace, and the weight of forgiveness. When it was over, people filed out silently. I stayed. The lights dimmed and the room went soft with echoes. I walked up to the altar where a framed photo of Walter sat beside the guest book. His eyes looked lighter there, less haunted, almost human. From my pocket, I pulled out something small. A pizza box folded neatly into a triangle, like an offering. Inside was $53 in crisp bills. I set it beside his picture. "Debt settled," I whispered. As I turned to leave, someone touched my arm. My mom. I didn't even know she'd come. She stood there in the same black dress she'd worn to every funeral she'd worked as a waitress, the one she'd always called her uniform for goodbye. She looked at the photo, then at me. "He wasn't wrong," she said quietly. "You are his son." My throat tightened. "But I was always yours." Her hand trembled when she reached up to my face. That's what I was most afraid of losing. We stood there a long time, two people tied together by one man's guilt and one woman's silence. Before we left, the priest approached me. "Someone dropped this off for you," he said, handing me a small frame wrapped in cloth. "No name." I unwrapped it. Inside was an old photograph. Walter holding a baby in a blanket, smiling like the world hadn't broken yet. My name, Eli, was scribbled on the back in my mother's handwriting. For the first time, I didn't feel angry. I just felt full, like the truth, ugly as it was, had finally found its home. As we walked out into the cold night, my mom whispered, "You can't rewrite what's gone, Eli, but you can deliver something better next time." I nodded. Then that's what I'll do. I used to think forgiveness was a word. Now I know it's a lifetime. A week after the memorial, I drove to the cemetery on a cold morning, the kind where fog hangs low like it's hiding things you're not supposed to see. Walter's grave was easy to find. A small stone, no flowers, just his name carved neat and simple. Walter Henry Grayson, 1941-2024, no epitaph, no final quote, just an unfinished space where redemption should have been. I knelt down, brushing wet leaves from the headstone. "I brought you something," I said softly. From my jacket, I pulled out a small triangle, a folded pizza box, the last one I ever made for him. Inside, $53 in cash. "Debt settled," I whispered again. But this time, the words didn't sound like closure. They sounded like peace. The wind picked up, cold and sharp. A few yards away, I saw Detective Calder leaning against her car, coffee in hand, watching quietly. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. "Closure?" she asked finally. "Something like it," I said. She nodded. "You did what he couldn't." "What's that?" She sipped her coffee. "Told the truth before it was too late." She left after that, leaving me alone with the headstone, the fog, and a silence that no longer hurt. When I got home, Mom was at the kitchen table again, sunlight spilling across the same spot where everything had started. She looked up when I came in, her eyes tired but soft. "Did you go?" she asked. "I did." She nodded, brushing her thumb across the edge of her coffee cup. "Did you forgive him?" I thought for a long time before answering. "Not exactly, but I stopped hating him." She smiled faintly. "That's almost the same thing." We sat there, the quiet finally feeling safe. I looked around the room, the worn walls, the faint smell of tomato sauce, the framed photo of us from years ago, and realized this small house had seen more truth than most courtrooms. Mom reached into her pocket and handed me something. A gold watch, old but still ticking. "He wanted you to have it," she said. "Found it in the box you left." I turned it over. The engraving caught the light. "Forgive and be free." I didn't know if the message was meant for her, for me, or for both of us. Maybe it didn't matter. That night I sat by my window watching the rain slide down the glass. The streetlights shimmered like little promises that maybe, finally, the past was done taking from us. I picked up my phone, opened a blank note, and typed out the 7 words that had started it all. "The boy isn't hers. He's mine." Then I added my own, "And I forgive you anyway." Because forgiveness doesn't erase what happened, it rebuilds what's left. If this story touched you, make sure to hit subscribe for more stories about truth, family, and redemption. And don't forget to tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your words keep these stories alive.